Now, I don't know if things have changed in 2 years, but I thought that was a very interesting answer, and a very honest answer. That their legal department said, don't audit 100% of the population. It's too risky. Well, continuous auditing is auditing 100% of the population. So you got to take that into account. Okay? Now, so here's a model. It's not meant to be any particular model, but it was just something so I'll have something to point to periodically. Okay? All right? So if we're trying to combine continuous auditing and XBRL in some sort of fashion, this would be one model. This is not an optimum model, the best model, but it gives you just something to point to, and we can play around with variations. So let's assume it's a big organization with 3 dissimilar systems, legacy systems, systems bought through acquisitions of companies or whatever. One kind of interesting model, and Uday Murphy is not here. The first time I saw it was in one of his papers. I don't know if he invented the idea or if it came from somebody else, but this concept of the Xbrl Data Hub, okay? So it's really just a data warehouse, but it's a data warehouse that's formatted using XBRL. So it's a data warehouse kind of idea. Okay? And internal auditors could use it, management could use it, either over the internet or via DVDs, or however you're going to get the data. You could also get the data to the auditors, the external auditors. Okay, and again, there's nothing magic about this. I'm not pushing this as any particular innovation. It just kind of shows you the components. We've got the legacy system. We need to convert it or link it or map it to XBRL, and then people can use it. Well, I don't want to spend too much time because I only have 20 minutes. This was just some discussion of ways to do that conversion. The conversion could be done at the data hub. It could be done on the individual systems, or the individual systems could be replaced with XBRL. Not very likely in the short term. Now, here's even a dimension. You know, again, I'm going to use the word dimension, meaning factors, issues, concerns, but I'm just going to use the word dimensions as my big overall term. I mean, just even doing a cost-benefit analysis, which has got to be step one. I mean, we're not going to do continuous auditing with or without XBRL if it's not cost-beneficial. Well, that raises issues, okay? Well, not so much this slide. Let me go to the, oh, I'm sorry. I guess I don't have a slide that says what I wanted to say. Sorry. I guess that could be an issue. Okay, well, doesn't it say it someplace? Well, that's interesting. Gonna have to fire my secretary, I guess. But anyways, I mean, here's what I thought was kind of fascinating, which I don't have a slide for, was the difference between internal auditor, well, not even internal auditors, but let's just say internal use versus external use. And what made me think of that was actually a focus group that I was doing with some internal auditors. This is what had nothing to do with this at all, but it was about SOX. But I just remember an internal auditor talking about risk profiles, and he says, if my company goes bankrupt, I'll go out and find another job, and it'll be a pain in the butt and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But if it's an audit failure, well, the extreme, of course, is an Arthur Andersen type thing. That guy's going to lose all of his equity. I mean, that guy's going to be flat busted. Whereas to me, it's just kind of an inconvenience. Okay. So if I'm doing a cost-benefit analysis, the cost-benefit analysis for somebody internal to the company, I think is very significantly different than the cost-benefit analysis that an external auditor would do because of this huge risk profile issue. SOX has changed that formula, because now, because of the emphasis on internal controls, that's going to make that cost-benefit formula shift. I mean, there's probably more benefits to be derived from continuous auditing. Well, I guess that's my slide. All right, 2 slides ahead of myself. All right, but here I'm just trying to show that benefits who. Now, when you draw these diagrams, you can waste days drawing these diagrams. Like, what am I trying to say here? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is any benefit that the internal auditors derive, the whole company derives. So there's no, the internal auditor circle's totally inside the whole company circle. But the external auditors, their view of the world might be different. Okay? So there's some overlap in terms of benefits and so on. That's all I was trying to say there. Now, probably the biggest dimension when you're looking at continuous auditing is the time dimension. And so I tried to capture that here. I even tried to create some new acronyms, maybe, I don't know. But there's that kind of real-time continuous auditing versus way at the other extreme is the periodic, monthly, quarterly, whatever kind of stuff. Okay, and I kind of created this middle category, which I call very frequent continuous auditing, and its upper limit is preventive controls. Is it still a preventive control? But even preventive control is a moving target, because I'm defining preventive control as any control that prevents assets from leaving the company. So if I pay vendors every 30 days, if I can prevent a check going out the door 30 days, that's still a preventive control. So that's a pretty long time frame. So if my continuous auditing can prevent a check going out the door for a duplicate invoice or a fraudulent invoice, in my mind that's still a preventive control. So that's a pretty big area. From real time to 30 days, in my mind, is still continuous auditing if it's going to be a preventive control. Okay, since I only have 20 minutes, I'm going to move way ahead here. XBRL, what part of XBRL is it going to be bolt-on, after the fact, mapped, all that kind of stuff. Push versus pull. In other words, is the continuous auditing going to keep firing stuff off to the auditors or to management, or is it only going to be based on a on-request basis? Who owns it? In a sense, here's what I mean is the client going to put in the XBRL? Is the client going to put in the continuous auditing? Or is it going to be so beneficial to the auditors that they're going to want to do it? Okay, or convince the client to do it? Or go to this model. Okay, maybe XBRL, because it's got that standard interface, in other words, the outward-facing side of XBRL, is going to be so standardized that it's beneficial to the auditor because now they can create one sort of analytical procedure tool that always is going to see the same variables because it's always looking at XBRL. The external auditors might say, we think XBRL is so good, we're just going to do it. Whether clients do it or not, we're going to use it as an interface. Now let's see what the heck I skipped over here. Here's a very important issue. Again, this concept of continuous. Well, I could do an embedded audit module that's firing off stuff all the time. Okay? However, if it's only being reviewed daily, weekly, monthly, that's a different timing kind of thing. So little timing delays of mapping XBRL or whatever wouldn't necessarily be an issue because, yeah, the data is being fired off on a real-time basis, but it's not really being looked at on a real-time basis. So a little built-in error, or I shouldn't say error, time delay is not going to be an issue. Okay, here's what I want to get to, and this is why I want you guys to write my research paper for me. Okay? So I couldn't draw a heat map because there's just too many damn dimensions. Okay? And I don't know if this is complete. It's probably not complete. So you guys could probably give me some input. But when you start thinking about continuous auditing, these are all the variables that you start running into. So there's that extraction time. In other words, is it real time, like an embedded audit module? But also, how often is it reviewed? Because that could affect, whether you're, even if you use bolt-on XBRL, which is going to put a timing delay in there, we don't really care if there's a timing delay if I'm only reviewing it weekly, quarterly, or whatever, even if it's an embedded audit module. Who's the audience? I mean, external auditors, internal auditors, because they have different cost-benefit curves. The audit subject matter, are we looking at transactions? Are we looking at data? Are we looking at controls? The test demand on the CPU. Okay, if I'm doing like an embedded audit module and it's only looking at one table to do the comparison, according to one paper I read, that's not a real big performance hit. I mean, yeah, sure, it eats up CPU clock cycles, but doing a one-table lookup is not a big deal. Doing a two-table lookup slows things down considerably, and then trying to do a math analysis with every click. So in other words, if I'm saying